All right. Building interdependence for students, planting the seeds for a community of support. My community of support this evening has been everyone who's been patient with the technical difficulties. So, tonight I'm going to tell you about this tree. And I know you didn't think you were coming here to learn about trees, but hear me out. You see this healthy looking young tree sitting in this pasture, and that's all you see is a healthy tree in the meadow. But beneath this tree is a root system going down into the ground, and it's going down just as far down as the tree is going up. And it's anchoring that tree into the soil, and it's making sure the tree has all its nutrients and helping it grow strong. And it's not alone. There is another tree nearby and another. And as you can see, they are different species, they are different ages. There are fungi to see the mushrooms, and all of those trees are interconnected through this web of roots and fungi underneath the soil, sharing nutrients, sharing information, even sharing medicine. If this little tree gets injured from a lightning strike or beetles, the other trees will all send it aspirin to help it heal, and they'll share information with each other. And it's a two-way street because even though this tree is young, it's sending communication and help and information to all of its neighbors, no matter what species they are. So they are all interconnected. In a similar manner, we have our graduates, our young adults that we are ready to send off into the world, strong and independent. That's our goal for them, to be independent in this world. And we want them to learn the skills to be on their own. But at the same time, our students need to have a good dentist, and they need to have farmers to grow their food for them. And they need a good auto mechanic to help them if they ever drive and have a car. And they also need to have friends and family and an accountant and a trash collector and someone to cut their hair and on and on and on. So there were people that we don't even think about that are influencing and supporting their lives on a daily basis and making it possible for them to live as independently as possible. And that is interdependence. Few things to remember. Our schools are one-stop shops. And that way, our students can come into the school system and get all the services they need: counseling, occupational therapy, speech language services, food. They can get guidance, they get their accommodations met. These students don't even have to ask for them. If it's on their IEP, it's provided for them. And parents may have some concerns from time to time, but for the most part, on a daily basis, unless there's a global pandemic, they get all of those services met on a regular basis. Another thought to remember is that young adults crave autonomy from their parents. You may have noticed this, that your young adult, if you have a young adult, or if you have even a younger student, they don't always agree with you and you don't always agree with them. And that's the way it should be. And we'll talk more about that a little later. Another more sobering thought is that parents, you, will not be around forever. So our students need to know who else can they go to for support. And they need to learn this starting at a younger age. They need to know that it's not just parents they can call, but who is that trusted neighbor or a grandma? And they need to know that grandma has a name that's other than grandma and a phone number. And they need to know who their doctors are and how to get hold of them and the proper spelling of their doctors' names. So that needs to be somewhere in their phone book. And they need to know other connections as they get older. They need to know that they don't have to do all of it by themselves, but who they can go to for certain issues. Who do they go to when they're really sick? Who do they go to if they just fall and or have a bruise or just need someone to make them some chicken soup when they're not feeling well? They need to know who they can go to for various problems. None of us solve all our problems on our own. I have no clue how to change the oil in my car, and that's okay because I know how to find a Jiffy Lube. So, we want to help each of our children, each of our students create their own forest, a personalized contact list of who to go to for which particular issue. And we want our children to be part of other people's forests as well because they are all interconnected. Our students have a lot to offer their friends and family and community members as well. So finding their talents and being in other people's phone books is part of that support network as well. So I want to tell you about a case study, and I will tell you it's not a happy one. So I have a former student named S. And S graduated from high school. Right after high school, he moved to Florida with his father. He did not connect to adult services. There didn't seem to be a need because he could hold down a job at a fast food restaurant. He learned how to drive a car. He was doing really well and was independent. And then his father died suddenly. And he moved back up here and he was still doing okay. He found an apartment, he found a new job, he was driving, and he was surviving independently. He was okay. But then in December, he received a diagnosis of cancer, stage 4 cancer. And all of a sudden, he couldn't go to work. He couldn't drive anywhere. He was too sick. He needed help getting to and from his appointments. He couldn't do any of it. He was going to become homeless because he didn't have any income. He didn't have health insurance, and he had no clue what to do. So he reached out to me and he said, I need help. He was all alone. He did not have a forest. So I started making phone calls and we needed help immediately. So I ended up calling Adult Protective Services and connecting with an amazing, amazing social worker there who immediately figured out who she could um, connect him with to make sure he had rides to chemotherapy, that he had started the pipeline to get him Medicaid and connect him to other resources so he wouldn't lose his home, and start building his forest very slowly. And as a young man with autism, he didn't have friends. He didn't have that network. He didn't think he needed it because he was being independent. So we had to very, very quickly put those supports into place. Now I'm going to turn it over to Christina.
Thanks. I think, like, going back to what Deb was referring to with the metaphor of the forest, I think that all of us have we have our own forest. Our children have their own forest. And when I thought of that, I think about all of the things. I think about the beauty of how we can be a tree in someone else's forest and how we're all
Yeah.
connected together. And as we reflect on that, we want to, as a part of being a part of this community that supports one another, how do we start with the single tree? And one of those ways is through self determination. And one misconception that we have about self-determination, I think, as a whole, and even with students, is that they internalize a lot of these things to be just about themselves, and that I have to be this independent person. And we sort of talk to students all the time about, you don't need to be independent, but you need to be interdependent. And we talk about the differences of these things. Self-determination and these elements of self-determination are about them getting to know who they are, so that their voice is not lost in the forest, and that they know who they are. They know what things make them happy and make them sad and make them angry. They know how to regulate themselves. They know they can think about what goals that they want to plan for themselves and make those decisions as such. But also utilizing the resources within their forest to excel those goals and choices forward in their life. So these are the main concepts: choice making, decision making, problem solving, goal setting, self regulation, self advocacy, internal locus of control, self efficacy, and self awareness. So I've grouped them together, and um, I'm gonna sort of go through some of these, and then Karen is going to highlight on one major one as well. So can we go to the next slide, please?
Yes.
So the first one that we're going to talk about is self-regulation. So, and this also goes with self-awareness. So the idea with understanding the zones as a tool to understand this is understanding what sort of drives their emotions and where their emotions lie, and then being able to think through a problem. Because if we're not available, if we're reacting in the red zone with a huge, thinking it's a huge problem when it's only a little problem, we're not available to really think clearly. And so that's the purpose of self-regulation. And this really helps center students. I use this with my own children, of evaluating sort of where they are, and what do they need to do in order to get them into a place where they're available for strategies for calming, or for to get themselves motivated. There is a lot of work that is done within the classrooms, even within. I was observing other students in other high schools today, and it was very cool to see how they were doing it. But this is common language that we're using to teach about self-regulation. Next slide. And then with this idea of self-awareness and self-advocacy, is that knowing who we are, knowing what we like, where our interests are, what our likes and dislikes are, what makes us frustrated or worried or sad, and also knowing sort of what our strengths are and what we want our successes to be. Knowing those things about ourselves, and then knowing how to ask for what you need. Those are the main components of building that self-advocacy. So self-advocacy is important, and really important to be your own advocate. And it's also really good that this pairs well with that self-regulation, because just because you're asking for something doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get it. There may be a negotiation that happens with your forest, with asking for what you need, and also hearing from others of where things are, or gaining another perspective, reevaluating, and all of that happens within that context of self-advocacy and knowing yourself. And then the next part is knowing where you're going, of knowing your goals, and what the long term where you want to be within your life. So I think about these things when we're talking to students, and we're talking about their long range plans, and sometimes uh, when we talk to students, and sometimes they'll be thinking about really big goals, and we can say that's a really great goal to have down the road, and then also backtracking and talking about what's a goal for right now. What does it look like? What does it look like, 6 months from now, a year from now? And being very specific and targeting what you really want to work on that is attainable within that time area. And that sort of talking about that timing and sort of planning for those small wins along the way is really important, especially when you're talking, there may be disagreements or different perspectives. And it's in those moments that we can also look to what the individual's goal is and ask them, is this choice, helping them to get there? Because not everybody's going to make the best decisions all of the time, and that's okay. It's a part of the learning process. All right, and I'm going to hand it off to Karen.
Okay, all right. For those of you who don't know me, because I think most everybody here knows Deborah and Christina and Kelly, my name is Karen Shimkus. I'm working this year with Christina as part of the transition team at the Career Center. And I want to talk practically about how one teaches problem solving. So I'm going to give you my perspective as a teacher and my perspective as a parent, because I'm the parent of a young adult on the autism spectrum. So as we know, life is filled with unexpected events, and we want our children to be able to handle them when they occur. COVID quarantine is something we've all had to deal with, and it's certainly at the beginning of it, we were also running around looking for milk and toilet paper. And we had to find a solution for those two problems and figure out how we're going to deal with them. Next slide. As adults, we solve problems every single day, hundreds of big and small problems without even thinking about it. Sometimes we use our own knowledge, our own experience. If you know how to change a tire and your tire go flat, you're in good shape because you can use your knowledge and experience to deal with it. Often we need to use resources, as Christina mentioned, and those resources will be frequently other people. I definitely want AAA to come if I have a flat tire. Next slide. So how do you teach this to your child? Because nobody's born knowing how to problem solve. It's something you learn throughout life. And I know from my own experience, if I asked my daughter to sit down because I wanted to teach her something, like, honey, let's sit down, I want to teach you something, I would get a dramatic and unpleasant response that's highly likely. So you teach it, one of the ways to teach it is through conversation, through events as they arise. Often our children are very emotional when they have a problem. Actually, often we are very emotional when we have a problem. And so what we want to do is see if we can bring down the temperature surrounding the specific problem by using conversation. We convey a lot of meaning to our children by our tone of voice and our response to their coming in and telling us that the world is ending. And the calmer we are, and the more we say, hey, it's just a problem to be solved, it helps them to see that it's not the end of the world. And so one of the ways to do this is to use conversation. When you engage your child's thinking, you're teaching them that all problems can be solved, and you lower the temperature in the room to a point where they can use their problem-solving abilities to think of solutions. Next slide. Oh, it's me. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is ask your child, is this a big problem or a small problem? Probably the biggest challenge as a parent is that when our child is going up and down filled with emotion, we frequently want to go there with them. They're excited, they're upset, we get excited, we get upset. As much as possible, we need to be that straight line because we're sending them the message, hey, it's just a problem to solve. It's not the end of the world. So when you engage them in trying to determine the size of the problem, they have to use their brains. They have to stop and think for a minute. Oh, this is not that big a deal. Conversely, they may say, no, it's the end of the world. We have to fix it. You can draw out their ability to think as a problem-solving human by asking questions like, can we solve this ourselves? What are some ideas? When you do that, take any answer they come up with. If they tell you they're going to run away from home and live with a rock star, accept that as an answer, but keep asking, what's something else we can do? And this is the place where you can start to help them understand the interdependence in their society by asking them, who do we know that might be able to help us with this? Who can help us solve the problem that we're facing? Next slide. After you've come up with some ideas, and sometimes it helps to write them down. It kind of depends on your child, whether they'll go there with you or not. Sometimes younger children are willing to draw a picture. Draw a picture of what outcome you want. Draw a picture of what solution you think might work. All those things diffuse emotion and engage other parts of your child's brain. Once they have a couple solutions, even if they're outrageous, ask them the next question. What'll happen if we do this? Try to get them to think, well, if I live with a rock star, I'll travel the world and have a lot of money, but I'll have to be away from my parents. Help your child to work through the problem-solving process and choose the best option. Which one do you think will really work? Most of our kids, when they calm down, when they engage their thinking, have pretty good sense and can choose reasonable options. Next slide. This is an important part, and it can be casually. I know my daughter hates it when she thinks I'm trying to teach her something. I mentioned that before. But it can be part of casual conversation to check back in and see how did it go. Let's say they're having a trouble at school and they've decided they're going to talk to their teacher about it. Most of us will say, how did it go? Did you talk to Ms. Smith, Mr. Smith, or Ms. Smith? How did it go? What was the outcome? If they're successful, you want to praise them and describe what they did. I like the way you took initiative. I like the way you talked. Because what you're doing then is building their own self-concept. Oh, I'm a person who takes initiative. I'm a problem solver. If there's a struggle, if their solution didn't work out so well, talk about what could have been done differently. Is there something else that we can do? And all of this can be casual and low key, because the ultimate message you want for your child is, I can handle things. I can figure out who to ask for help. I can come to a good solution for whatever problem I'm facing. Next slide. If you're kind of interested in using conversation to teach your child in this way, there are two oldie but goodie books, Between Parent and Child by Haim Ginott, probably the most tender-hearted and understanding pediatrician that's ever written a book, talking about the way to build a relationship between yourself and your child that engenders conversation. Particularly with teenagers, we know that's kind of the age when they stop talking to us. This is a way of keeping those channels open. And the second book, written by two women who were part of a parent group run by Ganat, How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. They have really straightforward, practical advice about how you can talk to your children and come to solution in a way that keeps things calm, doesn't escalate. And now Kelly will talk about timelines and goals.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Christina and Deborah, for setting up the slide for me, actually. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Mountain with the Parent Resource Center, and I want to talk about our role as parents and when we think about timelines and goals for our kids. They're so important, but they're different for all of us. I know as a young mom, my kids are grown now, but my husband and I had, in our minds separately and together, kind of some preconceived notions about how our kids would grow and develop and what they'd turn into and maybe their occupations. And what I came to find out very quickly is that my goal, my husband's goals, my timelines, our timelines for our kids were very, very different than their actual development. And I think it's important. It took me a while to really understand and to really grasp that what our kids have in mind, their goals, the timeline that they achieve their goals, they still have a lot of value. And we have to remember as parents to really celebrate the successes. We want to be realistic when we think about goals for our kids. All of our kids are different, and it might take a little bit longer for our kids to reach goals. I like this little graphic that I found because it's kind of hard to see on my slide, but I think it shows some different ways. We have kids that are, walking along, they stop, they read a book, they might need a ladder, some scaffolding to get to the next level. So we have to think about each individual's needs. And again, keep the benchmarks and the goals realistic and really be welcoming of some blips along the way. It's okay. Deborah's going to talk in a little bit about the importance and the dignity of some mistakes and failure, really. So we need to keep that in mind. And when we're thinking about helping our kids make important decisions, or really any decisions, we have to be careful that we're not making them out of fear. We want to make sure that our decisions are based on realism, and we want to make sure that our decisions are going to be sound for not only right at the moment, but for the near future as well. Deb's also going to talk about how when our kids are resisting us a little bit and pushing back and letting us know their ideas, that's when we start to see this autonomy, this growth in our kids. And that's what we want. We want them to be able to kind of test the waters with us as parents or guardians, and then to be able to move on independently, but also interdependently as well. When we were putting this little presentation together, I think it was Karen that said sometimes we have to throw the timeline out and really think carefully about our kids' needs and their goals. And again, celebrate all the successes that they have and really relish, the people that they are. So I believe I'm going to turn this back over to Deborah.
Maybe. Okay, thank you. So I want to talk to you a little bit about Hegel's dialectical theory of change. And Hegel was a philosopher and who came up with a number of different theories. And one of his most famous was this one. And he talked about how parents, who are the thesis, have a certain worldview. They've come to expect that things are going to be a certain way. These are their values, these are their mores, And they expect that any children that they have are going to be exactly like them. And they impart their values and norms to those children, starting when the child is born. But children have another role. Their role is the antithesis or antithesis. And any of you who have teenagers know that this is what happens. Children say, no, that's not what I believe. I believe this, or I don't agree with you, or even I hate you because you have a belief that I don't share. Maybe your belief is that I should have a curfew and I don't. It can be something like that, or it could be something a lot more substantial, different views of the world, their perceptions. So this creates conflict. And this conflict, according to Hegel, is necessary because if we didn't have that, parents and children would be happy and harmonious, and children would stay with their parents forever. And that creates its own problems. So, in order to propagate the species, children must move on and they must want to move on. So, the children naturally are going to establish their own worldview and argue with their parents about it until the point where they leave and create. I think someone needs to mute. I'm sorry, I'm hearing a siren. um, and the children will move out, and then they will go on with their life and have their own children. And suddenly they'll realize, huh, some of those things that my parents were saying all those years actually make sense. And so their views start to swing back more towards their parents. And that's the synthesis. It's a combination of their own ideas and those of the parents or those that came before them. So and so it goes. And then the synthesis turns into the thesis and on and on and on. So it's really more like a circle than a triangle because it's endless. It continues as a cycle in life. And it's important to remember that this is true for our students with disabilities too. Just because they have a disability doesn't mean that they're not going to come up with their own worldview, their own ideas on how they should live their life. And eventually they'll probably adopt some of yours back as they age and mature. But they need that space, they need that time to create their own viewpoints and their own cycle of life. So, I want to talk about what happens when things don't go as planned. That could be part of the antithesis. No, you want your child to do one thing, and they have their own ideas about it, and that can lead to mistakes. When they make mistakes, which they will, remember the dignity of failure. And what I mean by that is that it's okay to make mistakes. We need to respect that. And certain healthy mistakes. I don't mean running out in front of traffic or anything that's life-threatening. I mean starting with little things. It could be natural consequences that help a child grow. If we always pour the milk for them because we don't want them to spill any, then they'll never learn how to pour it themselves neatly. They have to have those opportunities to practice with support in a controlled environment. And we also know that if our children are unaccustomed to making mistakes, if they never have the opportunity to fail, then when they do make a big mistake or even a medium sized mistake, it feels like the end of the world. Christina was talking earlier about the size of the problem. And sometimes our kids have little problems that end up feeling like much bigger problems because they haven't learned how to deal with making a mistake. It could be, for example, I had a student who got a C on assignment instead of an A, and had previously been an all A student. It led to a major crisis in his life because he was not accustomed to anything less than perfection. And for other kids, it could be making a mistake with their finances or making a mistake with not studying and then, getting a poor grade. And so they need to have opportunities for natural consequences and to learn to problem solve, to learn about making a plan B sometimes with your support, with the support of their teachers. We need to not encourage them to make mistakes, but learn how to fix those mistakes on their own or repair the problems that they have in their life. If we do it all for them all the time, then they never have that opportunity and they don't learn how to deal with anything that doesn't go as planned. Now I have a happy thing to share with you. And that is our second case study. So maybe it will work. It worked a minute ago. I was trying to share down here somewhere. Sarah, I had your slide that you sent me. I think I'm going to have to stop sharing and open it that way.
She's going to stop sharing and open.
Okay.
Yep, I'm going to stop sharing, and I do have your picture here, so I think we can do this. I think this will work. We are trying all kinds of creative solutions, and I thought it would work. Well, you know what? How about you share your screen? Can you do that? Because it's not.
No, you're trying, honey.
Yeah, this turned out to be a little bit more labor intensive than we planned. But I will tell you this is a happy story. My first case study was not necessarily a happy one, and this one really is. And naturally, it's not letting me airdrop it either. Because, it just isn't.
Mom.
Okay, can you share?
I think I did share screen.
Okay, ask. Can they hear you?
I'm going back.
Sarah, we can hear you.
Yeah, they can hear.
Okay,
And we can see you, which is great too.
Okay.
Do you want to try to share screen?
We can't see your screen.
Well,
so next,
where there's okay, open share tray.
Yep.
I'm afraid you've gone beyond our technological capabilities here.
Okay, I'm trying some other things as we speak.
Fine.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen back again.
Okay, good.
I think we can make this work. Just give me, nope. I was trying to make it bigger. So the problem is the way it's formatted. It's a little hard to see, but we will make it work because we can do that.
Deb, you could also click on that magnifying symbol to zoom in on the graphic.
Okay, let me try that.
And this is a great example of interdependence.
It really is. So can you see my screen again?
Yeah.
No, maybe not. Wait, that's not the screen I wanted to show you. I wanted to just show you the presentation. Okay, so we're going to present, and then let me see if I can magnify it. Let me try that. View, Zoom. I think we can do this. Does that help? Sarah, can everybody see it now?
There you go. There you go.
Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to our next presenter, Sarah, and we are going to try and make this technology work for us.
Okay. Turn the camera off. You got your mute on.
Yeah.
Now, why don't you go to the Cognitopia slide and just read it to everybody?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see.
And this
What?
is Sarah, who is
She's
currently a student at Nova.
we're good. She's on. Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
See, what classes are you taking? Then there's what do you like about those classes? And what don't you like? I'm not reading that.
Okay, you're not going to tell them what classes you're taking?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Take too long.
She's good.
Take good time.
I am currently taking a class called Intro to Communication, or CST 110.
Okay.
I like my professor that teaches my Introduction to Communication class, CST 110. She is a really nice lady. She makes the class fun. I don't like doing group projects and quizzes. What are your grades? My grades are A's and B's. Think about why you are doing well in that class or why you are not doing well. I'm doing well because I'm doing well in that class because I have support from my friends, professors, classmates, and family. How will the class help you reach your post-school goals? It will improve my ability to interact in the community. It will help me with the team participation skills.
Okay. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about why you know all these people?
What am I doing?
You're a PEP graduate.
Oh yeah, I am a PEP graduate, and that's how I know a lot of the people here.
Yeah. How long have you known Miss Hammer?
Since middle school.
Right. And what have you done
Since middle-
repeatedly?
Should I go back here?
Yeah. What's a program you participated in a lot?
Where's the
Yeah. Go to the screen where you can see the meeting.
stuff? Trying to find out.
Okay.
I can scroll down.
Okay.
There.
Okay.
I finished.
Okay. But tell everybody what is something that you've done.
I'm determined several times with the order of self-determination.
Okay. What was your role in that?
I was a youth leader.
Yeah. And how did that help you?
That helped me by teaching me self-advocacy skills.
Okay. And were you able to do it all on your own?
Yes.
Did you need a support and a team?
Yeah, I did need a support team.
Okay. And how did working on a team help you with your adulting skills? You're getting out there.
It helped me learn communication skills and interdependence,
Yeah.
right?
And what are you doing now? You're looking down, you're looking back towards people coming up behind you, right?
Yeah.
In what ways?
What does that mean?
Mentoring.
Oh, right now I am mentoring Sarah Horner, who also graduated last year.
Okay. And how does this all
And Sarah,
work?
you have a couple other mentoring things that you do. What else do you do where you serve as a mentor?
The ARC, the
Yep.
ARC's National Council, and the Order of Self-Determination.
And you're also buddies?
And I'm not on that anymore. I did my 2 terms.
You were.
I used to be on the Best Buddies State Ambassador Council, but I finished my 2 terms.
Very good. And
Thank you.
What made you
Mom,
choose taking speech and then communications as your college classes?
I had a language disability growing up.
Yeah. And so what did you spend last semester doing?
practicing,
learning
right?
how to.
Right, how to present speeches. I think
Right?
she was trying to finish.
Yeah. Okay.
No, that's okay. I love it. Thank you so much, Sarah. So do you feel you've answered a lot of questions and the audience may have others, but do you feel like it's important to have other people around you and for both for you to support them and for them to support you?
Yes, it does. It takes a village.
Thank you. Let's see if I can get back into our presentation. So I'm not sure what happened here.
Now she needs.
Now I need some help. Yep.
Now she needs to figure out how to get out of that.
Okay.
I know. I don't know. Our presentation sort of doesn't like me at the moment, but we only have one more slide really. So let's see if we can do this again. Oh, it's going to go all the way to the beginning. Nope. Try it one more time. Everyone is being so patient. All our technical considerations tonight. Okay. Our last slide is just really a review that goes over all the things we talked about tonight, that it's important to plant the seeds, which is making sure that you start to build those connections, nourish the soil, make sure you continue building those connections throughout life. Expect sunny and rainy days. You have to have both to have a healthy forest. So not every day is going to go well, and that's okay. Allow time for each tree, or in this case, each student, to grow at their own pace. They're not all going to grow at the same time or in the same way. And don't forget to admire the trees. So that's all we have. And Sarah, thank you so much for your very important contribution.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions from any of the parents or other participants?
Deborah, this is Karen. I was thinking we might want to mention that on April 28th.
I'm glad you thought of that.
Yeah. So this presentation has kind of been, what's the philosophy behind the concept of interdependence? Where do we want to go? And at the end of April, we'll do another presentation to talk about some specific tools that can help you guide your child in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just part one. Part two, we'll learn about the specifics.